There is nothing called marital crisis. Trust me. I have worked with troubled marriages in the last 20 years of my life, and I've come to a conclusion that every marital crisis is nothing but ignorance. What for it? Ignorance of words. Because I know some of you are already thinking that, oh, what's Praise talking about? But you know what? I have been in the field. I've worked with some of the most difficult marriages with successes. I am regarded as one of the leading family life innovators across the world right now. So I know what I'm talking about, and you've got to listen. Every marital crisis it's basically ignorance of self. Basically, I work with people and I realize that many people manifest what we call pseudo-personality. So pseudo-personality means that your personality has been taken away from you either as a result of your upbringing or some trauma in your childhood, or who you become as a result of the handlers in your life. So take, for instance, a child who was extroverted and sexually molested, became introverted, and live as an introvert for the rest of his life. At the point of making a marital choice, she's gonna naturally be looking for an extrovert based on the conditioning we've been subjected to by the opposite attract syndrome. Now she marries someone that she feels was a direct opposite, not knowing that they were actually similar. Eventually, the guy is also looking for a quiet person. They get married, she goes through healing process, then she realized that the personality she was in when she made that choice was not actually the right personality. So, ignorance of self. People don't know themselves, because if you truly know yourself, you will know who you don't need. You will know who not to say yes to in marriage. Number two is ignorance of your spouse. Now, imagine if you are a pseudo personality and the person you've married is also a pseudo personality. Many people don't know that the real enemy of their new family that they're trying to create was the original family that they came out from. We call it the originating nation, right? The culture that nation has conditioned or installed into you comes to war with each other when you get into marriage. So ignorance of your spouse. Many people don't know their spouse. They marry an assumed person. So ignorance of yourself is one. Ignorance of your spouse is number two, because your spouse may not also know who he is. So you have people who have anger tendency, who have all kinds of tendency, getting into marriage without even knowing, because marriage is going to reveal you to you. That's given. Number three is ignorance of marriage. That a lot of people don't understand the purpose of marriage. People get married because they want to have sex. People get married because that's the next thing to do after school. People get married because there's a lot of pressure around them. People get married because they are lonely. Now, if you don't understand what marriage is, you are likely going to experience marital crisis, because you would think marriage is a bed of roses and you come in and the person is supposed to make you happy, because no human being can actually make you happy. I have defined marriage as the coming together of a man and a woman from two different nations to create a new nation that will promote the best interests of all and whose culture will give our world rest. What this simply means is that two people are coming from two different families with different culture, different ideologies, different worldview. When they come together, they are supposed to come together to create a new family, a new nation. And in creating a new nation, they are supposed to answer critical questions. What type of family do you want to build? What will be our vision? What will be our values? What will be the mission? What will be the DNA code of the family? What will be the legends of the family? And various things that we teach that they are supposed to master. Now, when those questions are not asked, you will have a situation where people who are even unlike themselves, we call them unequal yoke, will get married to themselves. So you will find a first world guy get married to a third world lady, or a third world lady getting married to a first world guy, simply because they assume that because they're from the same nation, they belong to the same world. World is your thinkability, right? That first world is a level of thinking, or a way of thinking and a way of saying things. The same way third world is a way of saying things. When you guys marry yourself, the first problem you're going to have is that you're going to have different worldview, you're going to have different communication clues, and there will be crisis, right? So, ignorance of marriage. Number four is ignorance of the building techniques. Marriages don't build themselves. And the most important thing in marriage is not even prayers. The most important thing is applied knowledge, right? And if you don't have that knowledge, you are not knowledgeable about what it takes, and you can apply the knowledge, which is called wisdom, there is no way you're going to build a marriage. There are systems you need to put in place, and those systems must be intentionally built. Unfortunately, not many people even understand those systems. Now, the way to build a marriage is totally different from what has been taught at different levels, at different meetings. People do a lot of sensationalism. They get you excited. But by the time you get them, you realize that you cannot apply what is being taught, because marriage is a lot of work. And there are techniques that anybody who can embrace those techniques and build them will build a super marriage, regardless of their religious persuasion, regardless of their worldview, regardless of their culture. Principles are universal, it's application that is different. And lastly, ignorance of the enemies of your marriage. The enemies are not witches and wizards. The enemies of your marriage are not even in-laws. The enemies of your marriage is the two of you. The people you see in the mirror who call themselves couple are the real enemies. Because if you know you're struggling in a particular area, you need to go for help. Unfortunately, people say things like, you don't bring a third party into your marriage. You need to bring a third party, a knowledgeable, a credible third party, because it's not everything you are going to be able to handle by yourself. Now, I hope you understand what I've just shared with you, right? The time is short, but you need to know that everything you call marital crisis is nothing but ignorance of yourself. Because I always ask people, at the point where you're making a marital choice, what was your state of mind? What was your level of exposure? What was your level of awesomeness? So ignorance of yourself, ignorance of your spouse, ignorance of marriage, ignorance of building techniques, and ignorance of the enemies of your marriage. If you can deal with those 5, trust me, and implement all it takes to build a super marriage. And that is why we run certification programs. That is why I run all kinds of seminars and coaching programs to help people master the kind of family they want to build and create the template that promotes their best interest. Marriage is a lot of work. It's not just play. It's not a fun fair. It's a lot of work. And only those who work it out will enjoy the bliss of that marriage. I hope this has been helpful. My name is Praise for I'll see you some other time. Have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.